What's going on, everyone? Welcome into Around the Felt. We have a special guest tonight to join us to discuss the Panthers' 2024 season and what they've done thus far in the 2025 offseason. Going to talk some NFL draft. Let me introduce him, Matt Scherf. Matt, thank you for joining us tonight, my good friend, and also Reagan in his nice little warm. What is it? What is that? A wool hat, Reagan? What brand? What is that? Are you a little chilly? Is it chilly in the basement?
Yeah, I mean, I got it. I put it on backwards. It is a Jets hat. One of the whatever you want to say, the guys that like to upcharge and act like they're giving you a deal when you go to the stadium. Walked through this year and was like, yeah, I could do a beanie for $20. And me being just the shark I am, I was like, I'll give you $10. And then the guy took me up on the offer. So I got this nice beanie for $10, but I'm like, we're talking Panthers, so I'm going to flip the logo around. We are not talking Jets.
Yeah, we're definitely not doing that.
Show some respect to Cherf and fellow Panthers fans. Well, Cherf, start us off. What grade would you give the Panthers' 2024 season and why?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I do want to start off. Gentlemen, thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. Good man. Good man right there.
But yeah, so it's been a pretty interesting season. I mean, the biggest takeaway I would say is obviously the Bryce Young situation. Panthers aren't the biggest media market team, but everybody who kept up with ball saw how Bryce Young was terrible like those first few weeks. And that 2023 team, his rookie year, my argument, my contention is that's worse than those Browns, Lions teams, 0-16 teams. That team was awful. And then when we get to 2024, lose to the Saints by, I think it was like 47-10 or something like that. And then he just looks terrible. People are saying he's the biggest bust in NFL history, and it wasn't even a bad take at the time. They brought in Canales, kind of like a little bit of a quarterback whisperer with Geno Baker. They benched him, and then he comes back. But obviously, you guys all remember that. So with that said, the defense was terrible. Most points given up in NFL history. I know it's 17-game season, but still, my grade would be a C+. C+.
That's fair.
C+
That's a fair grade.
I want to say the plus to kind of give that little bit of positivity in there. The Bryce Young turnaround was just huge. Any franchise having a quarterback that they're excited about going into the next year, there's really not that many quarterbacks in the NFL where people are that excited about, or at least fan bases are. And I think that the fan base is genuinely and honestly excited about him. With that said, a lot of work to do on the defensive side, a little bit done in free agency. And then, the draft is also something where we'll talk about that in a bit, but I'm hoping that's somewhere where they can address that gap, because there's got to be work done. Last offseason was a big offensive offseason. Damian Hunt, or Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis, those guys, and offensive line was pretty good last year, but defense was terrible. That's what it was, a C+, but it was close to. It could have been a bad. It could have been another F-. So yeah, that's the grade. Yeah, no, that's what 2023 was. So last year we were headed there for the first few weeks, but C+ is what I'll say.
I think it's funny you brought up the last year an F- because I remember, Reagan, when we did this last year, I gave him an F, and I think you gave him like a D or something. I was like, how is that not an F of a season? They were so bad. Like they were picking number one, but they didn't have the pick. Like you can't fail more in a season.
You couldn't. No,
I'm just a big Bryce Young guy. What can I say? I believe in what the Panthers are building there. I mean, I gave him a B- this year.
Oh,
I'm not a hater like Chirp over there. No, I'm kidding. But honestly, like I almost am throwing out the first half of the year, like the Andy Dalton and pre Bryce Young benching. I'm throwing it out the window. Obviously they lose their at the time highest paid defensive player in Derek Brown, who was stalwart on the defensive line. Losing him early doesn't help. Jonathan Brooks, you lose. Barely have him at all this season. Another high draft pick. Leggett doesn't really, have that big breakout you'd hope. But then everything starts to kind of click once Bryce Young comes back. They They beat the Saints. They beat the Giants. They go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. They go to overtime with the Bucks. They go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. Or I'm sorry, they go toe-to-toe with the Eagles. And so, the Eagles won the fucking Super Bowl, and they lose by 6. The Chiefs were in the Super Bowl. They lose by 3. So it was like a team that was competing in games. They weren't winning all of them. And even at the end of the season, I mean, you beat the Cardinals in overtime. You beat the Falcons in overtime. So they were competing. Bryce Young looked like a completely different guy. I mean, he obviously ends the season with 15 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, and a lot of that, bad work happened early on. And on top of that, I mean, he still added 6 rushing touchdowns as well and only lost one fumble. So it's really 21 touchdowns to 10 turnovers. And I didn't think he really had that with his legs. I mean, I know he was could scramble in college, but for a 5'10" guy, I mean, it's a little risky trying to get out of the pocket and, take some of those hits. So he definitely showed a lot more mobility than I expected. And I mean, down the stretch, his last 3 games, he had 0 interceptions. And then he goes out and has 7 passing touchdowns in his last 3 games. So he really was just starting to click. I wish he had a longer season. And on top of that, he had 3 rushing touchdowns. So he had 10 touchdowns to 0 turnovers in his last 3 games. So you could debate. You could say maybe he was the top quarterback in the NFL for those last 3 weeks.
Whoa, jeez, man. Jeez.
I mean, hey, he was – I mean, dude, he had a quarterback rating over 100 in all 3 of those games. The last 3 games, he was, like, unconscious, lights out. And even during that winning streak, like, basically after that Giants game, he only had 3 turns. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In his last 8 games, he only had 3 interceptions. So he really cleaned it up. That is really the main reason I'm high on the Panthers, because that's the thing. And Churf was just saying that they have hope. He's given this franchise hope, because there's nothing worse than me as a Jet fan knowing that the season is lost and all you have to look forward to is that young quarterback and him showing promise at the end of the season. At least Bryce gives you hope going into year 3. And hell, I think this team could definitely be competing for the division this year. I wouldn't be shocked at all if they won the division. Maybe that's a hot take, but I'll be picking them.
I don't think that's too hot of a take.
I think it's a hot take. I definitely think it's a hot take. I don't think they've closed the gap a ton on Tampa Bay. And
they have a lot of draft picks. So
I do think they're better than New Orleans, for sure.
Yeah, and I think they can. I mean, I still think they can.
Actually, I don't even know for sure. I don't know.
No, they are.
I mean, I like Bryce Young more than Derek Carr going into 2025. That's for sure. But
that's a tough one. Those are my 2 guys, man. Those are my 2 guys.
Those are your guys, dude. Those are your guys.
But I will say, I mean, they have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 picks, and 5 of those are in the first 4 rounds. So they definitely have a lot of ammunition, and it'll be interesting to see what they do at pick 8 this year. But Colin, what'd you give them?
I gave him a C. You got to take into account they won 5 games. You got to take into account they had the worst defense in the league. 32nd in terms of yardage, 32nd in terms of scoring, 32nd rush. At least you were 23rd against the pass, because you got to tip the cap to J.C. Horn back there. But the only thing that mattered from last season, though, was what you guys highlighted, and that's the growth of Bryce Young. When he got benched, it was like, oh, are they already moving on? Are they going to take a quarterback in this year's draft? Like, is Cam Ward, like there was already being talked about mid-season when Dalton was going. You do have to respect, one, the Panthers, Canales in the front office, with actually sitting him down and putting a young guy on the bench, because you rarely see that happen. But you also got to respect Bryce Young in the way he handled it, where he wasn't pouting and he wasn't frustrated and he wasn't like, oh, I was the number 1 overall pick. Like, there's not much around me. Like, from all accounts and everything I've heard, he put his head down, he worked, he got better. And you saw it when he came back, 15 touchdowns passing, 6 picks and 2,100 passing yards after he got benched. Like, that's really solid. And it's not like he had a great supporting cast either. Like, they had a pretty solid running game with Chuba Hubbard. And, that was also another positive. But I don't love his weapons. Like, Adam Thielen still get the job done at his age. Leggett was a little shaky. Jalen Coker, though, I mean, that was a good find. He definitely did some nice things. So those are all positives. But still, they won 5 games. The defense was god-awful. And I will say another negative, Jonathan Brooks. Not that running back was even a big need for you guys in the draft last year, but you took him the top of the 2nd round, and then he tore his ACL again, which you just got to feel so bad for the guy, because now he's going to miss all 2025. But, I'm not bashing the pick because he got hurt, but looking back, it's like, damn, they just have so many holes. running back was one of their strong suits in 2024 with Chuba Hubbard, and you still had Sanders under contract. Like, you didn't need to go back there. So,
well, Sanders is now not under contract.
Well, now he's
Thank
not,
God.
but he was in
Thank
2024. Yeah, I mean, that was a terrible deal.
Well, also in
Terrible.
fairness, Chuba Hubbard did take like a huge jump this year. I mean, he went from 3.8 a carry to 4.8. So,
yeah,
as the lead guy, he definitely took a huge step. Because early on in his career, that was the big knock on him, was he just was not efficient with the rock. And all of a sudden, he had a nice year 4 jump, and they were smart to get ahead of it and give him the extension before he hit the open market. Because I think he would have been a guy that would have fetched a pretty solid contract if they did end up letting him walk. But, I mean, hey, fucking 1,200 yards almost and 10 touchdowns. I mean, yeah, it does suck with Jonathan Brooks because that was a second-round pick that you could have gone in a lot of different ways, but I don't think anyone expected Chuba Hubbard to be that good.
No, that's a valid point. That's definitely a valid point. You weren't anticipating the growth of Hubbard, but still, like, they could have went so many different ways with that pick.
I love the random Drock sighting in the background.
Well, yeah, Drock's laptop's gonna die. He's like, "Can I get your chargers?" Like, dude, I'm on the pod too, man. You know, like, but it's all right. Let's transition to the offseason here. So they did extend J.C. Horn 4 years, $100 million with 72 guaranteed. A big deal, but he is worthy of it. When J.C. Horn is healthy, he is amongst the best corners in the league. And you added Trevon Merrick, safety from Las Vegas, to a 3-year deal on the back end of that defense, which they desperately needed. Pass rush was not really addressed that much and still a big need. I know that they were in on some of the big-time pass rushers in this free agency, but didn't land any of them. With Williams going to New England, Josh Sweat going to Arizona, they just kind of missed out on a lot of those guys. So, first of all, before we get to the draft, because I know pass rush at number 8 is certainly in play here, and that's the most popular mock draft pick. But, Sheriff, what are your thoughts on what the Panthers did this offseason?
Well, I think they saw how bad the Derek Brown injury impacted the team.
Yeah.
So, they got a D tackle from the Chiefs. They got a D tackle from the Browns. And those aren't guys that are going to go and necessarily bolster up the pass rush, but you just need guys to clog holes. You need guys to kind of come back in and just get some more depth at that position, because coming back into it, the way I'm looking at Derek Brown is like, hey, we just signed a free agent D tackle because we didn't have him last year. That defense needs all the help they can get. Pass rush wasn't addressed too much. They did get some linebackers. They got Roseboom from the Rams, and I believe he had a lot of tackles last year, like well over 100 tackles, and he just kind of seems like just a bit of a gamer. Like, you see a long hair linebacker like that, like he can play.
He can crack. He can crack.
Yeah.
I mean, also to put it in perspective, the Panthers allowed 180 rushing yards a game.
Exactly.
The next closest team were the Saints at 141. So that was 32 and 31. So that shows you, A, how big of a loss Derek Brown was, but B, how big of an issue it is. I know that's why I was hoping, and we did a mock pod the other day. I had Mason Graham falling to them. So if Mason Graham is to fall to him, which seems unlikely, I think we had Mason Graham falling to him, I believe, at 8. I believe. I could be wrong, but if Mason Graham is to fall to them at 8, that could be
it's
a nice 1-2 pairing with Derek Brown.
Yeah, I took him at 8 because I thought you were going to take him at 7 with your Jets, but you didn't. You went with Membo.
Yeah. But, I mean, bringing back Horn is or not bringing back, but extending Horn is obviously huge as well, because you got ahead of the curve. I mean, you see now, I believe Stingley got paid right after, and Sauce is now due for a big contract. And if you wait, then he's going to be wanting to get paid more than those two guys.
Exactly.
So that was definitely good on their part to get ahead of that.
I'm a big believer in, if you have a player that, especially a guy you take in the first round, that after 3 years, when they become extension eligible and they're superstars, like right now, for example, like Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson for your Jets, Reagan, can be extended. There's no reason for the Jets to wait. They're long-term pieces on your team.
I don't know. I don't know for certain now. Yeah.
And every year, it's going to get more expensive. Which is why, I don't understand why Dallas is waiting so long with Micah Parsons, because you just saw Crosby set the record, and then Myles Garrett set it on top. It's going to keep resetting as the salary cap goes up every year. So if you have a guy like Horn, when he's extension eligible now, getting this deal done is smart, and they got it done before Stingley too.
Mm-hmm. That was huge. And Horn, he came out and he said he wanted to be a Panther. I mean, you've seen how the Panthers have been recently. So for him to be that good and come out and say like, "Hey, I still want to play here." I mean, just give him a blank check at that point. Just, you sign here, we'll take care of it, because that doesn't, especially in today's age, people want to move around, they want to get paid. Keep him in Carolina. He went to South Carolina. He wants to be here. So yeah, no question. Love that decision, and huge to get ahead of Stingley, Sauce, all those guys.
Yeah, he's certainly a building block for the future. But let's transition to the draft. Pick number 8. Must feel good to have a first-round pick this year, right, Cherf?
Yeah,
So...
I get to look at mock drafts. It's fun.
Yeah, right.
Hey,
what do you do between the Super Bowl and the draft if your team doesn't have a first-round pick? You're just bored out of your mind. You need a mock draft to kind of scratch that itch a little bit. So I know you've been checking them out. Who's on your mind at pick number 8? Who's your number 1 target?
So at this point in time, because when the season first ended, believe it or not, but they had a dual Carter dropping that low. That's never going to happen. But they did. They did.
No, they did. I had him dropping that low in my mock, so.
I remember that. You know what? Everyone's talking about Mason Graham. I like the kid Jalen Walker from Georgia.
Yeah, he's the most popular pick there in the mocks.
Yeah, I mean, so one, the Eagles seem to do this, and they just draft players from Georgia, and
it works.
Georgia players, I don't want to. Hey, let's not boil the ocean. It's pretty simple. So maybe that would work. But another thing is, you've got the pass rush is big. He's a little bit of like an outside linebacker type, I believe. So it could kind of help you out in both. To have a guy who can drop back, but he can also rush the passer. And I mean, our pass rush, Jadeveon Clowney, he's a bit of a fossil. This is a retirement home for him. He actually grew up 20 minutes outside of Charlotte, so he just wants to be close to his family. It's like great, but we want to win football games. We need someone who's gonna help us out, not just someone who's just here because it's convenient. And
you better watch out talking about Clowney like that, bro.
Yeah, Clowney's gonna fucking
go out to a bar in Charlotte, and he's gonna be like, "Hey, isn't that tall Polish kid who called me a fossil?"
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, no, he's a Gamecock first overall pick. Didn't really ever pan out, but there's not many. A lot of first round picks don't pan out their full potential. But he's also like 34 years old, or he's in his 30s.
Yeah, he's up there for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't want to, and I don't think Mason Graham. I think Mason Graham will be a phenomenal player. I think just for the Panthers, bring back Derek Brown. They also got some depth at D tackle. I don't think it's as big of a need as a pass rusher. And I mean, just having a good pass rusher like that is just so fun. Just knowing that no matter what's happening, if the other team's carving you up, boom, you can get an 8-yard loss like that. Having that on the team would just kind of bring almost like an electric feel to the defense where, JC Horn isn't forced to kind of stand on his head back there and make these plays, and then get some pressure on the quarterback. You got JC Horn, Morig back there, even Mike Jackson got him back. He played pretty well last year. So Jalen Walker, that's my guy.
Yeah, Walker's got that versatility. He's played off-ball backer and was really good as a pass rusher off the edge. So it kind of helps you in two regards, against the run and in the pass. And it's a very popular pick, so I don't mind that at all.
I mean, I still think they could address the skill players too. I mean, Thielen's 34. Yes. They obviously trade Deontay midseason, and you drafted Leggett last year. But, I mean, I don't think he showed you enough that you're definitely sitting here saying that's our number 1 for the future. So I think
Tet McMillan.
That's definitely a possibility at 8. But I also think Tyler Warren's a possibility at 8 at the tight end position, because he's obviously a game changer as well. And the Panthers might just be like, hey, we saw what Brock Bowers did last year going early. Like, let's not wait around. Like, we like Tyler Warren way more than we like any of these other skilled or weapons, you could say, outside of Travis Hunter, who obviously will not be there. So I wouldn't rule that out either. I think that's definitely in the cards for them at 8.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't seen Tyler Warren mocked there at all. I know they just took Jatavion Sanders, the tight end of Texas last year. And, he was...
Yeah, but I mean, the Raiders also took Michael Mayer in the second round, and then the next year take Brock Bowers. So I think when it comes
different
to
regime,
the freaks,
though. Different regime. Different. This is the same regime that just took Sanders. Different regime.
But I mean, Sanders was a 4th-round pick. I don't think they're saying.
Yeah, but he had some nice games. It's not like. But I agree with you. Like if you're sitting there, because I'm still in the mindset in my own mock draft that I'm working on. Like I have 10, right? But if they're in the, because I still think it's all about Bryce Young. I know the defense is still garbage, and you could certainly take a top end pass rusher there, but you saw what Bryce Young started to do at the end of the season. And for me, I still think you got to use pick 8 to help him even more because, yeah, your defense can be garbage, but if Bryce Young doesn't get to that top half of the league type of quarterback, you don't have a chance to win a Super Bowl anyways. So if you are actually sitting there and think Tyler Warren is the best skill position player, which if I had a blank team and I could pick Ted McMillan or Tyler Warren, I'm taking Tyler Warren over Ted. So I haven't seen that.
Can't do the QB sneak. Tyler Warren's your guy.
But honestly,
I mean, honestly,
yeah, like
legitimately,
yeah. You could have a tush push now. Like you added that element to your game. So look, I mean, I still think it's about helping Bryce Young, and both Tyler Warren and Tet kind of add a different dimension to your offense where they're big bodies and Young, like the strength of his game is his accuracy, where he could put the ball up where only those guys can get it and do it really well. So I think having a different dimension in the offense like that could help him get to the next level. So I'm a fan of going Tet. I haven't seen any mocks with Tyler Warren, Reagan, but that is something to look out for.
So much will change between now and the draft anyway. It always does.
Yeah, and I think they paid they signed Tommy Tremble, re-signed him, gave him a little bit of money. Not that he's, some guy where it's like, no, you can't draft
Tommy Tremble breakout.
You're not drafting over Tremble.
Is Tripp calling Tommy Tremble the fantasy sleeper this year for the tight end position?
Nah, honestly, fantasy sleeper, I wouldn't rule that out. But
maybe we'll come back to this.
I think it's one of those things where all 3 of those guys, I think Tyler Warren's, it's probably between, or even throw Mason Graham in there if he's there. It's probably between Jalen Walker, Tet. I think Tyler Warren's more of a dark horse, but I would not be upset with either of those guys. Because, yes, there's no number 1 receiver in Carolina. There's like 3 number 3 receivers. So having like a number 1 guy there, and Colin made a good point. Bryce Young, accurate, can get it to where, Tet, who he's got some pretty big comparisons. He's got some Mike Evans, T. Higgins comparisons. But yeah, I wouldn't be upset with either of those. I think either a guy that can, get you some Randy Moss type highlights, or Jalen Walker can get you 8 plus, 10 plus sacks on the season. I'm fine with either. And I think either of those guys could really help the ball club win some games. So
I also wouldn't be opposed to that. I know it's easy to say like trading back, but they have so many holes right now.
Again.
No, I know. I'm just saying they have so many holes right now. Like if the Jackson Dart hype keeps creeping up and he keeps creeping up, and some team does ultimately want to trade up to 8 to take him,
or if Sanders slides, to jump New Orleans.
That's true too. With all
New Orleans could take Sanders if he's on the board.
So I know they have 9 picks, but they're still recovering from that Bryce Young trade. If a team offers you multiple picks where the Panthers are right now, and they can, get some more capital to move back, and they're like, listen, we have all these holes. Like some of these guys we like here will be there. You'd be foolish to not take it. It just really depends what the quarterback market ends up becoming, because it sounds like Sanders could slide. It also sounds like Dart could move up boards and, potentially go top 10, because, everyone last year was like Bo Nix and Michael Penix won't even be a first rounder by the time
they're day 2 guys.
They were 8
guys,
and 12. So a lot will change between now and the draft. And it always seems like the past couple of years that these quarterbacks keep creeping up. And then it's like, oh, wow.
Good point. Let's get Drock in here. Drock, we got any questions tonight on the Carolina Panthers?
One question. Actually, I have 2 questions for you guys. My first question for you guys is, do the Panthers have the worst wide receiver room in the league?
I mean, I'm trying to think. You're looking around. It's like, would I take Jacoby Myers over any of the Panthers guys?
Big, so not the Patriots. There's got to be someone worse. No.
Yeah, it's right. We were sitting here like, there's got to be someone, right? They might, 10 and 8. Why not? They might have the worst receiving core in football.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it, because if you factor in tight end, you can't say the Raiders.
I still take Jacoby Myers over any one of the Panthers, by the way.
Yeah. And then if you think about the Saints, Olave, yes, on paper, but I mean,
he wasn't
he's had
healthy
some
last
bad
year.
luck.
I still take Olave's got a 1,000-yard season under his belt. I know Thielen does too, but Thielen's like 35 now. Yeah, I think you could make the argument they have the worst receiving core in football. But they do have like Leggett and shit. I said it
Coker,
earlier.
Yeah,
and Coker,
the fingers are crossed with Leggett because he can get open. He just had a case of the drops last year, and he's a kid, but same time, it's like we're not going to sit around for years just hoping that he breaks out. He doesn't have that leash like a quarterback might have. So going in, if that's your number one, and he's not Thielen's number one, but
you could say maybe they're better than the Cardinals right now.
Marv, I take.
Yeah,
I mean, Marv didn't prove it. I mean, I'm in on Marv, but after his season last year, I wouldn't say, Marv and the rest of the Cardinals cast is definitely better than, adding Thielen, Coker, and Leggett together. I mean, yeah, he's better than all those guys, but you could say that all those guys are better than Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch. I could definitely say it's comparable. But are you counting the tight ends in the receiving room? Because I'm not.
I would trade our weapons for
it's a receiver
Cardinals
core.
Weapons in a heartbeat. I would trade for a heartbeat to get Marv and Trey McBride, and if
McBride's not in this, it's just receiver core.
Still, I mean, Marv is.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably your. I still go Cardinals, and I still think Michael Wilson's proved more than Leggett.
Yeah.
I'm
just trying to play devil's advocate.
I get it. Yeah.
And when you put it like that, maybe they should go wide receiver at 8.
Yeah, right. I mean, come on. Now, what would be crazy is if they took, a guy like, like Golden, who's like flying up draft boards, and it's like, oh shit, could this guy go top 10? Even though I think it'd be crazy to take Matthew Golden top 10, but he ran a 4.29, and those dudes usually fly up the board, and it's like. What if because Golden is now plus 200 to be the first receiver taken off the board, which is number 2, and I'm seeing like Todd McShay. Todd McShay, huh?
What do they count Hunter as a corner then?
I don't think he counts in terms of bet. Like I don't think you could bet on Hunter as the first receiver taken, because he plays both receiver and corner.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just Tet and then Golden, and I know Todd McShay's like. Oh, we're gonna crush the draft bets this year. And the first thing he pointed out was, don't be surprised if Golden's the first receiver off the board at plus 200. And I think Carolina at 8, dark horse.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping we just stick with Jalen Walker.
It's definitely a safer pick going Walker.
It's the Georgia guys. Like it's don't overthink it, right? You overthink Jalen Carter, the big guy Jordan Davis. It's like, oh, these are risks, but.
Nolan Smith.
They just put belt to ass in the Super Bowl against
a dynasty.
Like a dynasty, the second best quarterback of all time, who's on his way to potentially be the greatest. That's a debate for another day, but like that's a big deal, and they just dismantled them. So I kind of just want to just take it easy for once. I don't want to make it harder than it needs to be. And if the offense really sucks this year and the defense gets a little better, then we'll be in the same spot next year, looking at like 4 through 8, and we can pick a receiver then. But I'd like Jalen Walker this year just because the defenses, they were so bad. Anything that can help.
Valid. Drock, what's your next question?
Last question I have for you guys is, did the Panthers mortgage their future for a quarterback that might be a career backup?
Oh, whoa, he's throwing shade at your boy, Bryce Young. Now, it looked like it during weeks 3 through 8 of this past season, but I think after what you saw from Bryce Young the back half of the season, you got to feel comfortable enough that, hey, maybe he's not going to be an elite guy, but he's going to be good. I think it's safe to say he's going to be good, not just like cutting down the turnovers, having more confidence, using his legs. I mean, those are all big positives that we didn't see initially, and he still doesn't really have a good core of guys around him on offense. So I think you're confident that he's going to be your quarterback for at least the next 3 years, but I don't know if he'll ever be elite.
I think he can, but I'll let Scherf go first because he's going to be the defender.
I'll play devil's advocate, right? Everybody down here in Carolina, they're excited about Bryce Young, but the thing is, and I'm excited as well. But the thing is, it is hard to win games in this football league. So just because he had a good stretch at the end, there's more film, because if you're looking at film from his first 17, 18 starts, you're not getting much as a DC. Now it's like, okay, we can actually work with something. So there could be a little bit of falling back down to earth, or at least something that I don't want to rule out. At the same time, he's also never played like a career backup, because his first 18 weeks, he was a, XFL quarterback. And then he started playing like an NFL starter. So I think it's either he's been playing well, or he just not even backup. Worse than Zach Wilson, worse than any of those guys who are actual backups now. I am excited, though. I think Dave Canales really knows what he's doing. And I think just when benching Bryce Young, it was a little bit of like, we have to figure out if it's him or if it's the coaching staff. And they're like, all right, well, it's not the coaching staff. So now we need to go in and figure out how to make this better. But he's got the attitude, coached by Saban, and he can play. He was a Heisman for a reason, first overall pick for a reason. So I'm confident about him. I don't think he's a career backup. But I do think that there could be some regression early in the season when some film comes out. But then, as time goes on, they'll gel together. He has a good relationship with Dave Canales. So overall, I'd say I'm bullish.
I am definitely bullish. I would take him on my Jets in a heartbeat. I think a lot of teams in the league would take him too. I'd say half the league would take him. And I don't think that's crazy at all. I think he could definitely be elite. I'm so in on Bryce Young. Give me all the Bryce Young stock. Give me it all. I'll take it, man. When he's a top 12 quarterback this year, I'll be excited. When
this guy's putting
this year,
he's putting all his eggs in what he's putting all his eggs in the Bryce Young basket this year.
Kind of look like a fucking egg right now with this hat on.
That you do. Well, everyone, that's going to wrap up our Carolina Panthers segment in the mini series. Cherf, we really appreciate you hopping on, my friend. Any last words from you?
No, I mean, I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate coming out here, using the platform, talk about the Panthers. They don't get covered too much in the media, so it's either, you listen to Around the Felt or you listen to Locked On Panthers. But in all seriousness, you guys outside of Locked On Panthers, I'm not listening to any of those ESPN or Colin Cowherd shows if I want to hear about the Panthers. If you guys have a Panthers segment, I'm tuning in, because you guys actually give them the time they deserve.
Let's go. Keep pounding. Keep pounding.
Yeah,
keep pounding.
I appreciate
sure. Now,
it.
can we? I was going to ask, are you going to come on for the 32-man mock draft and make the picks for the Panthers?
Would you like to make the pick at number 8? I think it's going to be Jalen Walker. I don't know.
Yeah, so I was going to say that after you guys after the draft, even if you guys have like a, episode, well, I'm sure you guys will. But
a little draft recap.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to come on, talk about, who they drafted, and then even talk about how they utilized some of those. I know they got like 3 5th-round picks. They've got a second, so can talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, it's that time of the year. It's that season where, you're just on the ringer looking at Todd McShay and all those different picks. But me and the buddies at the cubicle are just looking at the Panthers mock drafts all day. So
hell yeah.
Let's go. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll catch you soon here on Around the Felt.
Absolutely. Take care, fellas.